Well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight. My name is Chris Thompson. I'm the, founder of Sharatoga TechTalks. So we'll have a couple of quick announcements here, kind of about the status of Sharatoga TechTalks. And then I do have one kind of community announcement from someone that wasn't able to attend, but they will be here in February to talk about a community coding event, which I'm pretty excited about. Alright, so the first thing is we are now up to 536 meetup members. That's up from 492 just last month. So somehow we are growing. You all heard about this event because I sent out like one tweet and one meetup announcement, which is pretty exciting. Since we do zero advertising, it's completely free, or it's just a really expensive hobby I do. So we're also up to 443 Twitter followers, so if you're not following us, please follow us. We announce the different meetups. I'll share all the different presenters tonight. I'll link to any of the slides if they publish it, as well as some community announcements or different information about startups in the area. This is really exciting. We're up to 20 YouTube channel followers. All right, can we get a round of applause for 20 YouTube followers? That's up from 16 last month, so that's great. What's disappointing is we had 17 the month before that, so we actually lost some of them. So, not sure how that works, but we are recording tonight's meetup right there, so as long as you're not a presenter, you won't be on camera, but I do have to kind of make that announcement. And then if you are tweeting, we do ask that you kind of use the hashtag Sharatoga Tech. All right. Alright, so this last week in the Albany Business Review, Anne-Marie, cannot remember her last name right this second, she actually had an announcement that she's putting together an Albany Can Code kind of group, kind of coalition. It's in its early stages, it's still infancy, but she wasn't able to be here tonight, but she asked that I kind of like warm up the audience. She'll be back in February to kind of give a little bit of a talk about it. But what she's really, the gist of it is trying to do is she's trying to put together kind of a coalition of local businesses, of local entrepreneurs, of local techies, like our audience tonight, to kind of come together. In New York, you have all these different, like Code Academy and General Assembly, and you have other, Kids Can Code events and things like that. But we have really nothing up here that kind of speaks to that. So what she's trying to do is kind of gauge the community's interest in helping to participate. And I'm not really sure what that kind of means, but I know I'm pretty interested. I have two small kids in school that I would love for them to learn how to code when they're old enough to read. So Anne-Marie's going to come out in February and kind of give a presentation. But if you are interested, email me, tweet at me, something like that, and I'll put out some information the next week or so about that. And I think that is it. So I've got these out of order. But up first is Melissa. And we're going to kind of transition here, hang the bells. Is that it? That's it.
Hello, my name is Melissa, and I'm the co-founder of Fashion Mingle, and it's a brand new nationwide platform that we're building to connect fashion professionals in over 100 metro areas. And our goal is to connect fashion professionals so that they can create, collaborate, and connect with each other so that they can grow their businesses and find the professionals that they need. I started out in my career as a graphic and web designer, and I am originally from Austin, Texas. We moved up here in 2011 because my husband joined the workshop at Global Foundries. But I've always had a real interest in technology because we spent a lot of years in Silicon Valley, so I worked for Applied Materials, Rome, the inventor of Boy Scouts, all that. And all of a sudden, about in 2009, I got introduced to the fashion industry. And what I quickly discovered was they really need a lot of help in technology. So what I want to talk to you guys about tonight is how the creative industry is really growing everywhere, and so many different companies and different organizations, state, national, are really trying to help the creative industries in their area grow. But until they start embracing technology that all of us in here feel comfortable about, they're always going to be a little bit behind the curve and have a difficult time, being successful. So I wanted to define what is the creative economy. Wikipedia says the creative economy is based on people's use of their creative imagination to increase an idea's value. So that covers the arts, cultural goods and services, which is where fashion would fall, toys and games, and then research and development. So everybody in here is most likely part of the creative economy. Up here in upstate New York, there's the Regional Alliance for Creative Economy. You should check out the website, upstatecreatives.org. They commissioned a study in 2014 to really look into what are the creative jobs up here in upstate and what they could do to support them. So there are actually over 30,000 creative industry jobs in the capital region. And so that includes things from public relations, interior designers, web developers, photographers, a really wide variety of people that they consider a part of the creative economy. 53% of the people employed in the creative industry are actually freelancers. And so I'm sure a lot of us in here are freelancers. We know how hard that is. I've spent much of my life as a freelancer. And the incomes range between $20,000 and $50,000 a year. So people are not making a lot of dough. But as far as how much it contributes to the economy in upstate, they're really about at the medium level. But the sad fact is, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs fail within 18 months. And 44% of small businesses fail after only 3 years. So all of these people that are freelancers, that are starting creative jobs, creative businesses, they're driven by their passion, but there is a very large percentage of them that are going to fail. And that's what I'd like you to start thinking about, is how can you use your skills to help people in the creative industry be more successful. So 46% of the people whose businesses failed, and this is not my word, it was because of incompetence. But I'm sure we all feel a little bit like that in our own businesses, and just lack of planning. So people are passionate about an idea, they start a business, but they fail in just 3 years because of lack of planning. But the other interesting statistic that I found really shocking, being a web designer and all the bias, 75% of small businesses don't have a website. I mean, think about that. Just 75% of small businesses don't even have a website. And what's even more shocking is 41% don't think they need one. But 88% of U.S. adults are now making purchases digitally. 96% have made a purchase on a tablet, 76% have made a purchase on a phone, and 93% have made a purchase on a laptop. So I'm kind of thinking that everybody needs a website, right? So that little 25% of small businesses that have a website, here's what they're using. 80% of them are using it for just general information. If nothing else, that's what you need. One page so people can find you in Google, right? 45% are using it for customer service, answer emails, so forth. 35% capturing leads. That's where you get a little bit more technical because people have to figure out how to use constant contact or MailChimp. It's very time consuming to have an email campaign and maintain it. 30% on e-commerce, so if they sell something, how are they selling it? Can you use something as simple as a PayPal button, or do you have to have an entire system? And then you get into online booking of appointments. And then I was really surprised only 13% do blog posting. I mean, I've always been, like a cheerleader for blog posting because it's free content, it's easy content for your website, but only 13% are actually taking the time to do that. I mean, that could be the most effective marketing tool they have is just talking about what they do. So, I wanted to give you guys a few examples of creative businesses, organizations up here that need some help. So maybe somebody out here might think, I can do that. But I also want you to think about the creative industries that you use yourself. What are you good at where you could perhaps be entrepreneurial and think about how could I even turn this into a business? Because that's essentially what I've done with Fashion Legal is I saw a need and I created a way to solve it. So Saratoga Arts does not have a mobile-friendly website. They have a lot of events, so you can only imagine how many people are, on their way to an event and need information, but they can't get it because they can't find it on the website. They also have online class registration. How many women are sitting in front of the TV at night looking for things they need to sign their kids up for, and they've got their tablet or their phone. If they have a mobile-friendly website, they would get a lot more sales just because you just do that in a second. Adirondack Folk School, recently they were in the news that they're having funding trouble. And I don't know if you've ever been out there. It's an amazing place, and the craftsmen are just amazingly talented, and they're really trying to draw attention to these lost arts and keep them alive. And so Adirondack Folk School, the easiest thing they could do is actually have, videos of their classes on YouTube, and at the very least, they can earn some money by views on YouTube. But they can also do online courses. So those are just a few things that they could do with just a video. The Shirt Factory in Glens Falls, they have over 100 different vendors in that factory, in that building. All different kinds of services and products, really amazing businesses. But you can't actually go to that website and register for all of the instructors that they have in that building. And then I even found on their website that they don't have any events, but I know it's not true. They have events all the time. So what we're doing is we're creating a nationwide network of local fashion directors. That's our first step because when I got introduced to the fashion industry in Austin, there were so many really creative people who were really passionate about what they were doing, but they don't know how to market their business, and they have zero interest in technology and how to use it to market their business. So I started immediately thinking, how can I help these people, specifically, what do they need? How could we do that with technology? And so I lived there in 2010, and so I hired a programmer, and we actually built an Austin fashion directory. And we had it up and running for a couple of years, and it was free, and everybody loved it. It was doing really great. And then PHP got upgraded, and my directory didn't work anymore. But the whole time that was going on in my mind was I wanted every city to have a fashion directory. And so that is what we are about to launch. Here's a mock-up of what it's going to look like. These are the categories. We have 12 different categories. And so, for instance, there's over 50 different occupations, and then over like 60 different individual subcategories. So each person who signs up for the directory is going to get to choose multiple categories because people in the fashion industry often do several things talented at. But the whole goal is, if you're a fashion designer and you want to put on a runway show, well, you're going to need a makeup artist for your models. You're going to need a hairstylist. You're most likely going to need an event producer because you've got to get the venue and the lighting and all of that. So these people have one place to go to get all that information. This is an example of what the fashion directory inside would look like. Different people. It has a very social feel to it. This is what a profile is going to look like, and so they'll have their tags of what their categories are. You'll be able to contact them on all their social networks. You'll be able to save them to your favorites or share them, get all their contact information. Actually launch a little slideshow gallery. But in addition to this is just like the basic part of what we're doing. The plans that we plan on rolling out later this year are a lot more exciting because they're really about how we can help them maximize their marketing and their PR. So we're going to have a PR platform where they'll be able to broadcast much wider about the things that they're doing. We're going to have a freelance platform where if you offer a service like a seamstress, you can post kind of like, Upwork, Elance, all of that, but specifically for the fashion industry. Also a digital book so that people can upload their designs and then, buyers from, Nordstrom's can look, but also buyers from the boutique down the street can look. And that's the real key is connect, finding a very simple way to connect people to the service providers they need. So in closing, I have this little quote for you. And I know many of you are entrepreneurs, but Russell Simmons, I'm a big fan of Def Jam Records. Right? Yeah. But he says to be a good entrepreneur, you just have to pay attention to what people need and what has not been done. And so that's what I'd like you to challenge you to do. Is to, as you're out in your community and you have contact with the creative industries, see how they're doing business, think about how you can help them improve their business. And if you're entrepreneurial and you want to come up with an idea that would help the entire industry, wonderful. But if you offer a freelance business, maybe just taking the time to help with small steps to get them a little bit further along in technology would be really a big help. It's a big part of our community, and they do need a lot of help. So I hope that everybody will keep that in mind. Thank you. Oh, questions? No fashion related questions. Like what kind of boots am I wearing?
Come on, someone's got one question at least.
That's fine.
All right, round of applause for Melissa.
Next is Neil. He's going to kind of do a talk about technical writing, and then we're going to take a real quick 2-minute kind of break for you to announce it then. But anyways, one more announcement, we're going to take a quick break, and then our last announcement of the night, our last presenter of the night.
Hi everybody, I'm Neil. I'm not used to speaking with a mic, so if I'm not holding it close enough or something, give me a real subtle symbol like something like that. It's exciting to me to get to present after Melissa because Melissa's talk was terrific in that it was about how tech can help creative people. And I think that's a really important topic, and I thank you for addressing it. What I want to talk about is how creative people can help the tech industry. My background has been in writing and creating communications for scientifically oriented and technically oriented fields for over 20 years. Most recently, I've been doing that in the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry at Paleo locally. But even before that, I started off my career in advertising, writing for audiences of engineers in aerospace and primarily automotive, and computer science as well. When I got into that industry, I came from being a sports reporter. So you can imagine a young sports reporter who'd been to a small liberal arts college, trying to sit down with engineers and explain to them how you need me to tell your story. And one of the first real objections I got, and you know those times when somebody tells you something and you don't come up with the retort right away? The engineer said to me, there's no writer who can understand my product as well as I do. I need it. And I took that as a challenge, and I'm actually still friends with that engineer, and we developed a lot of great work together. What I didn't come up with right then on the spot was, if no writer can understand it, then how is your customer going to understand it? Because that was my job, was to understand it as well as he did, but make other people understand it the way they need it. So that's why I call this discussion, this is how it works. Because that's what it's about. It's understanding how something works and making sure other people understand how it works and what it does. I'm going to start off with this cartoon. You may, if you're familiar with XKCD, it's a real terrific webcomic. And this is one of my favorite examples from it. I don't know if you guys can read it in the back, so I'll read it real quick. It's a female character saying, I just have one tattoo. It's 6 dots on my chest, done by my oncologist. I need them for aligning the laser sights on a flesh-searing relativistic particle cannon, so it only kills the parts of me that are holding me back. That's a really beautiful description for what she's talking about is radiation therapy for cancer. Radiation therapy for cancer is a really high science subject, but that is an incredibly personal and emotional and intense way to describe it. And that's what a writer can do. A writer who understands both the science and the subject can wield words in powerful ways. That's why it pays to have a writer get familiar with the technology to translate it for the people who are going to use it. So how do we do that? For a writer in the technical field, it starts with knowledge. We have to study. I didn't study a lot in school. I study a lot in my job, and it's more rewarding than I think. It starts with a thorough understanding of the technology and what people understand about the technology, what their assumptions are. And that's the foundation for great communications. Next, you have to recognize that the better I understand the topic, the better I can describe it vividly. A writer who takes the attitude of, I'm a writer, I know other things, I need to know the science, they're not going to go very far. And finally, you have to understand the story so well that you can tell it intelligently and make it relatable to the people who need to hear it. It reminds me of another example here. That build didn't work. Okay. Let's see if I can get out of this. This is the blueprints of the Saturn V rocket using only the 1,000 most commonly used words in the English language. As you can imagine, that's not going to do a real good job explaining the technology that takes people to do. In fact, you see right here, the word 1,000 isn't not one of the 1,000 most commonly used words. So we have to talk about the 1,000 words people use most often. We have to talk about the thing to help people escape really fast if there's a problem and everything is on fire, so they decide not to go to space, rather than the emergency escape rocket. Basically, when you get out of that, what we get out of that, it's not, the writer's not here to dumb down the science. It's about making smarter connections when customers need to understand the science. So our toolbox for doing that is we have to understand the science and the technology really into it. We have to understand the experience of using it. That means we have to know the people as well as the product and the science. We have to understand what using is going to mean for them and what it's going to replace for them, what their experience is now, and how that's going to change in the light of new technology. And we have to understand the context of where we live, not just, how is this technology going to be used by them, but what is it going to change everything else about how they do their job or how they live their life. Ultimately, that's the only way I can do my job, and that's the only way I earn the trust of a client. They only trust me when they believe that I understand and care about their brand and their product as well as they do. So to do that, a writer's going to ask you a ton of questions. I'm not going to read all the questions, but you get the idea. A writer's working closely with you. The questions might not always immediately make sense. It might seem like I'm asking a lot of the same questions in slightly different ways. That's absolutely true, because I'm trying to understand how you understand your product, what you know about your target audience. I'm going to ask you things about your target audience, like what they read, what they're into, so I can go do my own research to understand your target audience. I need to know everything about your users so that I can explain the technology to them. So that's super important. Be mindful of the target audience. Know the actions you want to drive your audience to take and the mindset that will motivate those actions. If I want somebody to try a new app, then I need to know what they think about apps in general, what they think about apps for hailing a cab, and how I need them to think differently about those apps before I can get them to try a new one. Be creative but straightforward. It's really easy when you're writing about technical topics to get really involved in the science, really involved in the nuts and bolts of how it works. Ultimately, you have to find the story that's at the core of it and tell that story about what the impact is going to be and how it's going to change things. And finally, don't work in a vacuum. I look at everything else anybody is doing in the space. Every good writer does. Partly so that I don't accidentally do the same thing somebody else has already done, but also so that I know how do other professionals talk to this target audience. If I'm writing to people who buy Cadillacs, then I'm going to look at ads for Cadillac. But I'm also going to look at ads for golf courses and cross pens and anything else that is directed to that same target audience, so I can understand how other people have profiled these customers and speak to them intelligently. So people in technology, engineers, that guy who made the transmission that thought I couldn't understand it. You create a product in the real world, you take something new and you do the work to make it real. And that's an incredible thing that's beyond my reach. But what I can do is take the product and create it in your customer's brain. It needs to exist for them here in a meaningful way before they're going to engage with it in a way that's meaningful for you. So, why do I love doing this? Why have I done this for more than 20 years? Why have I made it my career? I was always into science fiction from a really young age, and one of the first authors that I fell in love with was William Gibson. In the 80s, when I was very young, William Gibson was writing near-future dystopian novels about how technology was going to completely reshape the world and disrupt popular culture and change it. That was the Sprawl trilogy. And then in the 90s, he was still writing near-future dystopian fiction, but it was a little bit closer to the present, and it was more about how our culture had to catch up to the technology. You get to the 2000s, and William Gibson announced, I can't write science fiction anymore, we're there now. His latest series in the 2000s, the Blue Ant series, was about how popular culture and technology came together to actually create consumer desires. To me, that was really inspiring. We live in a science fiction novel right now. When I work closely with technology innovators, I get to write a chapter of it every now and then, and to me that's really exciting. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, about writing for technology, and if you have any questions, I'd love to hear it. Okay then.
That was great. William Gibson is like one of my favorite authors, so that was an awesome shout out. All right, so what we're going to do now is, this is just a quick 2-minute, turn to your left or right, introduce yourself to someone you don't already know. The idea here is that we're trying to grow the tech scene here in Saratoga, and I want everybody to kind of meet somebody that you don't know. So 2 minutes, and then Lindsay is going to go. All right. That was a little bit more than 2 minutes. I apologize. I had to send a quick text. But so next up is Lindsay from Apenda. So she's going to talk to you about a topic dear to my heart, product management. So round of applause.
Thank you. So I'll start off. My name is Morgan Lindsay, and don't worry about it. Everyone switches it. I like both names, so that's good. I'm a product manager at Apenda, which is a software company in Troy, and I'll talk a bit more about that on the next slide. And the talk today is really what is product management to me, what is the role. I've kind of made it my own there. I'm sure different product managers, I don't know if we have any in the audience, but we probably have a slightly different approach. Any hands? All right, good. No one's here to call me on anything. It'll be nice, I know. So a brief overview of what my company and what the product is that we sell is. We're considered a platform as a service. And the reason we're called that is because we sit on top of an enterprise's infrastructure, which can be a private cloud, a public cloud, or any combination. And then we have that company's apps running on us, hence platform. And it's abbreviated PaaS, if you see that, similar to SaaS, which we're probably all very familiar with. So takeaways, Apenda is both a company name and the name of our product. It's 9 years old. It's headquartered in Troy, New York, with a large office in New York City and satellite offices around the world. We're currently at 105 employees and growing, and I've been there since 2014. As for our product, it's a business-to-business enterprise software product. We target Fortune 500 companies across all verticals who build and run many applications. Our end users are IT operators and application developers, and it's definitely a technically complex product to implement and to ramp up on, and generally to get your head around the first time you kind of encounter it. But I will say because of that, we never get bored. The other important piece of this that influences how I do my job is that we're on about a 6-month major release cycle. So it's not like a consumer app that's releasing very frequently. So an overview of what my responsibilities are as a product manager. You'll notice that there's a lot of stakeholders here. And it's really my job to make sure that communication is flowing back and forth to every single group of those stakeholders. They're all going to have their own priorities, they're all going to have their own pain points, and they're all going to have their own needs from the product. So generally I'll start off by gathering input from the stakeholders, and this is a back and forth process that lasts throughout the product life cycle, but it's definitely the first stop. I'll then define features, I'll write out the specs, I'll write out acceptance criteria and user stories. I'll work with the rest of my team to set priorities for a release. I'll ensure those features are built as intended, so I'll be working very closely with dev and test as we go along to make sure that any gaps that they find are filled along the way, and then I get feedback to fill those. Overall, it's about keeping the trains running on time, making sure if the release needs to be extended to get another feature in, that we can do that, or if it needs to get shortened for a reason that we know what to take out. And then again, ensuring the stakeholders stay updated. It's a big theme of mine that will come up again. So we've already talked about some tools tonight for technical writing, so I'll add on to that list with some of my 2 favorite tools for product management. The first one is leading with questions, not answers. And to kind of help with this example here, I'll steal from Henry Ford and say a customer comes to you and says, I want a faster horse. I could deal with that in 2 ways for the sake of this exercise. I could come back and say, okay, I'll need 5 to 10 years, I need a genetics lab, I'll need to hire some horse experts as consultants. Is that going to meet your needs? And the customer could say, yeah, let me know what you come up with and I'll see you in 5 to 10 years. The other approach that I try and use every day, sometimes I forget, but you just start asking questions about what is really the problem that you're trying to solve here. So if you ask someone, why do you want a faster horse, they might say, well, my sister lives half a day that way, my mom lives half a day the other way, and I just don't get to see my family as much. And in addition, this past holiday season, my horse got sick, so I didn't get to see him. And I have arthritis, so it really sucks having to go out and feed the horse every day. So if you're asking all of these questions, you're then able to come up with your own solution, and you can propose a car, which not only resolves the first problem, but it solves a lot of other problems the customer didn't appreciate help with. So I kind of have the takeaway down at the bottom here. As a product manager, you'll be in a constant balancing act between resource constraints and stakeholder demands. And asking the right questions up front will take time, but it will save effort and design regrets in the future. The second tool I want to talk about is transparency and the importance of it. So the example here is that Rob from sales stops by my desk and asks, we're hearing from so many potential customers that want support for X. Can we get it into the next release? The first way of dealing with this is, no, sorry, release is already set, not a high enough priority, maybe next year. Another way of addressing that would be, Rob, I understand it's important. I want to get that done as much as you do. Sit down, let me run you through what we're doing now, and why those are even higher priorities than what you're asking for. In addition, these are the criteria that would change the priority of your request. Now, Rob probably, worst case scenario, walks away from the first example thinking, well, she's a jerk, and product doesn't understand sales, and I don't really know what to do with that, and I'm just going to keep throwing darts at this board of product and hope that something gets through eventually. With the second approach, hopefully, Rob will walk away having a better understanding of the other needs of the company and the other needs of the sales organization, a better understanding of the decision matrix that product is using to decide what goes into a release, and a really clear idea of what exactly will change in his environment that would make him want to bring another feature to product to reevaluate. So, as a product manager, you have insights into all of the facets of your business. Remember that stakeholder slide. And the best way to help everyone move in the same direction is to share those insights with all parties. So I'll end with one of my favorite product management quotes. This was from Deep Kushar, who at the time was the head of product at LinkedIn. And I love this quote because a lot of product engineers or product managers don't have an engineering background. It's not a requirement for the field. And actually, if you have an engineering background, it can get in your way sometimes because you're going to be getting too far into the implementation details instead of remembering to zoom out and kind of look at the big picture. And it's a big no-no as a product manager to tell engineers how to do something. So you do need to be able to think like one. And what that means is you need to be able to understand what engineers are explaining to you, and then you also need to be able to problem solve and think through something logically. The design aspect is really important because you have to love your end users. You have to always prioritize that. Just like you wouldn't want a cluttered web page, you don't want a cluttered product with a bunch of one-off features for one customer that end up making the user experience for across the board for the other customers. And then I like the diplomat piece of this because you're going to have to listen to salespeople with their own language, and then you're going to have to turn around and interpret that in a way that makes sense to R&D. And then you're going to have to turn around and interpret that response from R&D back to the salespeople. And being able to put on multiple hats and put yourself in everyone's shoes is really going to make you successful in this position. So a great product manager has the brain of an engineer, the heart of a designer, and the speed of a diplomat. That's all I've got. Now, I've been told I can't leave until someone asks a question. So who's going to help me out? Yes?
Product manager sounds very similar to a project manager. So what are some of the major differences?
That's a great question. The question was, what are the differences between a product manager and a project manager? And actually, the terms are used differently depending on the company. So different companies, you'll find out that there's much more overlap or they've actually switched the positions. How I'm used to using it and how I use it at Printer is a product when that can be delivered. And as the schedule changes over time, so if I put a new feature in, I would go to the project manager and ask, how is that going to affect the schedule? Anybody else? Yeah. I can't hear you. You're a software developer and you found that the best product managers are the ones that can interface between your world and then the world of the customer. Is that, yeah? And have I found that to be a challenging part of my job? Always, it's a daily challenge.
Can we get an amen?
What was that?
Can we get an amen?
Yeah, amen. Absolutely, and I think, I love engineers because they tend to really appreciate truth and honesty and directness. And then, when you talk to the sales team, they want people to be really excited about the product, and they don't want to focus on the things wrong with it. I know at my old company, my division came up with this marketing phrase called "It just works," and our customers loved it, and our sales team loved it. Let me tell you, our R&D department did not like it. They're the ones dealing with all the sustaining issues. So I guess I really appreciate the differences, and most of the engineers I know wouldn't want to interface with customers. Some do, and they're wonderful, and they actually tend to migrate towards a customer support role or a pre-technical sales role. But and salespeople definitely don't want to be the ones coding behind a computer. So it definitely takes all types, and I think if you can appreciate those different viewpoints, that you'll end up being really successful, and you'll help everyone move together in the right direction, the same direction at least. Hopefully it's the right one. Anything else? All right, I got 2 questions. Is that good?
That's good. That's good. All right.
That was great. That was great. So I'm a product manager also, and I've waited almost a year and a half to finally find a product manager that wants to stand up and talk about what it's like to a day in the life. So that was dear to my heart. Thank you very much. So I kind of skipped a step in the beginning. Usually I ask the audience if there's any community announcements. And usually people kind of tweet me or let me know if they want to announce anything. So before we wrap up, is there anything that anybody wants to kind of announce to the community? Upcoming hackathon or get together or something? No? Yes?
Tech Valley Center of Gravity is having a Internet of Things hackathon January 29th.
Yes, did everybody hear that? So we will tweet that out tonight, tomorrow. So I actually did hear about that. Center of Gravity is having a hackathon January 29th. So we'll tweet that out, and it's an Internet of Things hackathon. It's a little early, but actually at our February Tech Talks, I'm actually going to kind of do a little bit of announcement that Product Fund is actually doing a hackathon at the end of February. I think it's February 28th, something like that. So we're kind of going to announce that. There's a couple teams forming in the area. So I'll have more information on that, see if we can kind of coordinate something. I'm also kind of working on a home base if anybody wants to come and work out of a different space for that weekend. But the idea is like Product Hunt, it's going to be a fully distributed hackathon. So I know there's a couple people in the audience that are interested. So I'll have some more information on that at an upcoming event. So if nobody has anything else, if nobody has a presentation in their back pocket, then I think we're going to wrap up now. So thanks a lot for coming out to Sharatoga January Tech Talks, and we'll be back 3rd Wednesday of February for our next in series. Thank you.